And I'll be honest, I have had the music industry make love to me, and I've had the music industry fuck me.
That is true. That is true. Music as a process. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And both can be fine. Thank you very much. Welcome to Two Shots and a Royalty Check, brought to you by Venmo, Your Money, Your Move, and Liquid Death, Murder Your Thirst. Let's get back into it.
The lady behind the counter, the cheese counter, she said, "That's my favorite cheese." I was like, "Hell yes." Or she said, "That's my favorite manchego." And I was like, "Awesome." I was like, "What's your favorite cheese here?" And she, this big smile popped on her face, and she came out and she walked around. You have a pinky up?
This is to see if I'm guessing right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
She was so excited about cheese that she handed me 4 little, she's like, "Oh, this is my favorite brie. It's more like it's almost like a mozzarella. It's so mild and creamy." I was like, and then she found like 5-6 cheeses. She was like, "And these are my favorite." And she was so excited about cheese. It reminded me that there's people out there that just love to do what they do because they love it, And I just
blessed are the cheesemakers.
Oh, blessed be the fruit.
A fromagier.
I just was really excited that she was so excited about her cheese. I've got a guy I'm working with in California who deals with a lot of like music gear stuff. And he is so excited about the stuff that they're making and the new stuff they're coming out with. And I'm just like, I love it, man. Just infect the world with that energy,
Big cheese energy.
Big cheese energy. I just love it. Like, she was so excited about cheese. And I was like, "You're really happy doing what you're doing, aren't you?" And she said, "Yeah." And her family came to visit her, and she said hi to them, and we said thank you. And she then recommended this chili and fig jam to pair with our crackers and cheese. That was fucking bomb. And I was just like so excited. She made my day better because she was so excited about cheese.
Dude, we charcuterie all the time. And I was wondering if I held my pinky up to see if the fact was that she did not have a singular favorite cheese. As most don't. Like, they'll be like, "Well, I can't say that I have a favorite cheese. I have a favorite brie. I have a favorite blue.
Yeah.
I have a favorite kind of cheddar, whether it's aged or white or, all that."
Yeah, there was a lot of that, but she said, when I picked up the manchego, she was like, "That's my favorite cheese." I was like,
Manchego, really?
I was like, wow.
Because my guess was Stilton.
A Stilton.
Yes,
a
it's
nice,
a blue.
robust Stilton.
Yes.
So, welcome to the cheese episode.
Yes. 2 shots and a royalty cheese.
The Queen's
welcome
cheese.
to 2 shots and a royalty cheese.
The King's cheese.
The King's cheese, yes.
The Queen's Gambit cheese.
Look, artisans are artisans wherever you go. There are good and bad.
I thought you were going to go
that's a fucking Paul
Def
McCartney.
Leppard, 2 steps behind, but
oh God, no.
Yeah, I went
sorry,
90s Def Leppard.
post-95
It's just a
Def
terrible.
Leppard.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't that adrenalize that song?
Oh, maybe it is.
I think it is. It's on that record, and no. It's like, you know what, Mutt? We've got it from here. We know what you're doing. No, you don't.
Yeah. Nice try.
Yeah.
You're good. It's there's that Def Leppard from the Hard Rock. No, it's not from the Hard Rock. It's in Vegas. Oh, maybe it is the Hard Rock in Vegas.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's
Yeah.
playing on Access.
Oh, nice.
And there's some treatment on that because that is not what Joe Elliott sounds like right now. I mean, it's from 5-6 years ago or something, but
yeah.
And they, to their credit, they do very live vocals and everybody
Yeah.
sings. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've seen the recent. Look, it's like, what are you going to do? There's some high fucking notes.
You know what's funny is I was watching this right before we got on here. I was cleaning something in this. I was like scrolling through the Instas, and there was a video of Tears for Fears, and it was a video. I think when we got on here earlier before we started recording, I was singing "Everybody Wants to Rule the World," and you said no, they don't. And what they did on this video is they were talking about their tour going out, and they showed a video of them in like 88 or 89 or something like that, out playing that song. I don't remember when that song came out. I think it was late 80s. And then a video of them doing it in the studio now. And it was like this really cool thing where you got to see them kind of at their heyday arena tour. And then they still sound fucking great. I mean, I think they were on Stern, maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. And they sounded amazing then.
Yeah.
It's like just fucking great band.
85, by the way.
85?
Yeah.
Wow. So we are almost 40 years. That's 38 years ago. And they're still, those two guys still sound like that.
I love
a little
that
different,
meme.
but you have to protect your voice. But
Have you ever seen that meme that like every picture of Tears for Fears looks like a couple that's still fighting that just got over a fight because they're both looking away from each other and kind of pissy. They're all artistic, but they look like a couple that's always just got out.
They
of
got
a
in
fight.
a fight prior to the photo shoot, but they'd already paid for it, so they were going to go through with it, whether they're pissed at each other or not.
Just shut up and get through this, Ken. Okay,
get through this, Ken. We're going to hang it above the mantle.
I didn't pay good money for glamour shots for you to come in here and ruin this.
For you to ruin this for me, Chad.
Well, all right, let's officially get into it. Welcome to Two Shots and a Royalty Check. Two Shots Music Pod, wherever you go to your socials and yell at people and post memes and stuff, you can find us there. I thought that there was some interesting area to cover here this week because I have been struggling with making music this week.
Oh,
and
okay.
I have not. That's the short answer. I've not made or produced any fucking music this week. And that's not completely out of the norm. There are some weeks where I just get hammered on everything else going on in life. I normally try to at least have... Yeah, that's what she said. I normally try to... at least get some lyric writing done, at least get some song ideas done. Normally I have some nights where that's where my mind normally goes to. I'm a songwriter at heart. I normally write. That doesn't mean I'm going to open a DAW and get into it. That doesn't mean I'm going to pick a BPM or anything else. But I normally have snippets going around, or I have a few songs I'm working on or whatever. And this last week, it just was brutal. It was brutal. There are so many things that are just going on around me. And so I just wanted to bring that up, that even when you've done this for decades, even when this is what you fucking do, and maybe even especially, so I was talking to a mixer about this. I was like, hey, you ever had a week where you didn't mix something? Like, that's all he is. He's a mix engineer. Not all he is. I'm sure he's, producer and plays as well. But he's not primarily a creator. Yeah, he's not primarily a songwriter.
He's the polisher of other people's stuff.
Yeah, not primarily an instrumentalist or anything. And so, if he doesn't get stems, he's not... as a mixer, it's hard to just go, okay, today I'm just going to mix. If you don't have something to work on. And so he was like, yeah, it was really depressing. He had this last month where he had like a few weeks where he was just begging people, hey, send me something to remix just to keep your chops up and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was important that people know that sometimes, things can get away from you. Now, by the way, this doesn't mean I didn't work on music business shit. Of course I did. There's a whole bunch of crap. That's kind of my point here, is that sometimes the business starts impeding on the creativity, and when you're sort of you don't have a full team doing stuff for you. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Even when you do have a team, this is okay.
Yeah, and so I think it should be said that there are sometimes, even when you get to this stage in the game, where you may not work on music for a week, and not to feel guilty about it. I beat myself up, as I always do. Yeah. And I was saddened, depressed, and depressed, disheartened, all that sort of thing.
I'm going to ask you a question.
And then I just sort of realized, you know what? It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
How about you? Do you come through these times?
Well,
where
I have
you...
a question for you first,
Okay.
regarding your response to when you weren't feeling productive and you weren't feeling like doing anything, and you said you got depressed and you probably got a little frustrated with yourself, like, well, I don't feel like fucking doing anything. And my question is, and I asked this of a bunch of productive and artistic creator people, is how much of your self-worth do you have attached to productivity?
Oh, good Lord. Well, I'm a Gen X kid, so if I'm not perfect, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
And if I'm not busy, I hear my dad's voice in the back of my head. You're burning daylight, right? You're burning daylight.
Yeah.
And but that doesn't mean I don't take time for me. I'm good. I'm better about that.
Yeah.
I won't say good about it, but I am better about it, especially in the last few years, of like just going, I'm just going to play FIFA.
Yeah.
And what's hilarious
Play
is
as
when
AFC Richmond.
Yeah, yes. Yes. What's hilarious about that, I don't know if you're the same way, but whenever I'm able to disconnect from the laptop or the Mac or, get away from the studio, get away from the stuff and just like, I'm going to go do something just for me.
Yeah.
Not as if all the rest of it isn't just for me either, but I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
But I mean, just something away from it. I try to, drop into a TV show, like, we do that all the time.
Yeah.
Or try to like play FIFA, something, frivolous.
Yeah.
And whenever I do that, I find that I'm starting to write music in my head.
Yeah.
Like I'm listening, we do Sync of the Week all the time, and I'm always listening to the music. I'm listening to the score. I'm listening to, how that plays. And it's the same thing with FIFA.
Yeah.
But I'm able to just sort of check out a little bit. But do I feel guilty about it? Yeah. Now, in this case, this wasn't necessarily that I didn't feel like writing music or didn't feel like producing. I just literally had no time. I mean, I literally... It was one of those last weeks where it was just emergency after emergency after has to happen today kind of thing that had to go on. And just real life got in the way of fun, creative stuff. And I think that probably where I am in life is that I don't want to write about that. You know what I mean? Like if you have one of those days where life just sort of beat you by the side of the head all the day. Yeah. I don't want to go home and then live in that in 2 hours with a guitar and be like, life sucks. Life sucks.
Had a bad day.
Yeah. I mean, I've written that song. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to write that song to bring me out of it. And I certainly don't want to write that song to keep me in it. So that's kind of why I was like, I don't want to put that, in the DAW. Like I don't even want it in there. Yeah. Like I wanted to just, wash the day away. I'm going to wash that day right out of my hair.
Very nice.
How about you? Do you feel guilty when you don't?
Okay. So I like this conversation is very, very interesting to me because it's one of the things that I talk to a lot of artists just like you do. And one of the things that artists really struggle with is a life-work balance.
Good Lord.
Because we've turned our hobby into our jobs. Gerbs!
Gerbs!
Our gerbs! I finally saw that South Park, by the way. I think I texted you.
That was awesome.
They
I was
took him a gerb.
Yes, finally.
It was so funny. It was really good. Anyway, we're not always great at striking work-life balance because music is fun and exciting, and playing a show is like getting up on stage and having that energy and creating something new and feeling that flow. And I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he said when he writes, the songs come to him 80% finished. Like he's got the whole thing mapped and orchestrated out in his head. I'm pretty similar to that.
Me too.
But I still have to, I still go through I have a daily habit of creating something, whether it is a full song or if it's a lyric idea. I'm always, doing a free write at the beginning of the day to try and, turn on the writer's brain. Thanks, Pat Pattison, for that little nugget. But, like I'm always doing all those kind of things. But the hard part is setting of boundaries around that stuff, because not only are we feeding ourselves this narrative that it's supposed to be fun, we're supposed to do it all the time. Society is feeding you this narrative that you are always supposed to be doing something. And if you're not doing something, you are not a worthwhile member of society. Now, fortunately, the new generation of kids coming up are aware that they need mental health days, that they need to take rest, that they need to set boundaries. And that is something that I'm really advocating for artists is you have to learn how to rest too. So even if you're not feeling productive as a songwriter and and you've got too many other things going on, like your yard caught on fire and your dog, ate, bleach pack or something like that, or whatever the hell's going on that week. Those are both horrible examples. I apologize to anybody that might have triggered. But
knock on wood.
The hard part is, like, I was talking to another friend today. She's dealing with some challenging things, and she's, literally her life and her universe and all of the things is forcing her to sit the fuck down and not do anything. She has to. She doesn't have any choice. It's a challenging thing to recognize that, we also, your hobby is your job. You must love to do it. And you must want to do it all the time. It's like sometimes it's fucking exhausting, and it's okay to sit down and go, I just want to watch New Girl on Netflix, which is what I'm doing right now because it's one of my comfort food shows, and not. I don't want to. I can't engage with all that.
And I think that we've talked about this a little bit. Is that I'm not interested in just, and maybe it's kind of where we are in our careers, and I think that this might be an age difference thing. Like maybe in my 20s I was different, but I'm not interested in just writing a song anymore.
Yeah.
I'm interested in writing great music.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested in that. And that doesn't mean that if I start into a song or something and I don't feel that it's great right away, I'll quit. Not at all.
Yeah.
I will see where that goes. And it's not like I need to have it be great for me to finish it. But when I'm not in the right headspace, or when I'm not have enough sleep, or I'm just way too burned out or tired, I know that that's going to go from the pen to the paper. I know that's going to go
from the window
into
to
my
the wall.
Guitar. Yeah, it's just like to the wall. Yeah. But I know that that's not going to have a great outcome, and it's also not going to be therapeutic for me. And I think that songwriters, have to you have to approach songwriting, in my opinion, I think that a lot of times you have to approach songwriting as a therapist for yourself. Like I'm trying to make sense of the world through my point of view and change it a little bit so that you get it as a non-songwriter, so that you hear it and you're like, oh, that's the way a relationship ends, or that's how this, like, you can see it in a different way than other people. That's what makes you different in the world as a songwriter, is being able to sort of take a general topic and put your spin on it. And to some people that's very valuable, but it's also very valuable to you intellectually, mentally, spiritually, soul wise, to be able to, not that you shouldn't go to therapy, but it's kind of like a first line of therapy of like understanding what you're feeling. You can get to that by the second verse, be like, oh shit, that's what I'm feeling. I feel down, I feel like I haven't been listened to or something. And, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think the grander issue though, is that like, I think that a lot of people that are, stuck on TikTok and in this grind world, especially because you have to put out so much music and do so much as a creator these days, that I think it's inevitable that there's going to be people who are burned out, feel guilty that they haven't done enough. And the startup sort of lifestyle of music these days, you need to realize that that's okay. And that possibly it's better than okay. It will give you the headspace to let the muse in. You're fighting your own muse if you are forcing it, if you're constantly tired or in a bad mood. And so it's okay to take a break. It's okay.
Yeah. There is something to be said.
Just have a notebook ready.
There's something to be said for this. I mean, you and I have talked about being at a different place in our careers. I mean, we've been writing songs for 30 plus years. That's 30 plus years to those of you in the back. And, we've developed and grown these habits as songwriters, and we have our methods and ways of getting it out and getting through it if we get stuck or we hit some of these mindsets. That's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I don't have writer's block.
I do not usually get writer's block. I have ways to get past that and get through that.
Yeah.
If I find myself, but we're talking about the desire to create here, more so than the ability to create.
And the forgiveness, if you can't, like everyone has shit that goes on in their life, you know, and like to forgive yourself if this week was not the week, you know, you canceled rehearsal, you didn't really work on that song, you're not picking up anything, you didn't write anything new, and then you're like, God, am I a musician? Because, you know, you are what you do, right? So you didn't do that this week. It's okay.
But that's okay.
That's okay.
Because that's not all you are. And a lot of times, I don't know if this is true for you, but I know it's true for me and several of my peers. This idea that we're only worthwhile and we're only valuable because of the thing we do. The thing we can do, our performing, the golden child is valued for what they do, not for who they are, you know?
Yeah.
And if you have this, and especially if you're praised very young for a specific thing that you do, and, you know, it's kind of lacking in other things, you tend to find that you attach your self-worth to this thing you can do. And I am here to tell you that you are, what's the line from Fight Club? You are not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis, you know, like that or something like that. And the idea, you are a valuable, worthy human being without any of the abilities and without any of the musical content, without any of this stuff. And if you can find a way to start yourself from that place and forgive yourself when you're not at the top of your performing game, because we're all going to have days, and you know, just understand it's part of being a human.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was the point I really wanted to make to anyone who's listening to this, is that I want to make sure that you understand that even if you didn't work on music this week, that doesn't make you not a musician.
Yes.
And that the forgiveness to yourself, and thank you, younger generation, for giving us all the space to speak this freely about it, because honestly, that's where it comes from, right? That's, like, thank you very much. Like, the younger people that I know that are so open about mental health and having that open space, and here we are, two men talking to each other about our feelings. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
But more so than that is to go a little bit further and to say, you, by forgiving yourself, by allowing that week to be okay, to be, that's what it was, and not placing any judgment on it, that is going to open yourself up to being more creative now, in the now. You know, otherwise you're still stuck back there. So forgive yourself about it and move on. And and allow your muse not to fight with you and be like, you know, I'm trying to get in there, and you keep worrying about that last week. So allow it and forgive yourself for it.
Yeah. I was doing this, Katie and I were doing this workshop on writing good copy last night. She signed up for something, and we sat with a couple of notebooks and a bottle of wine and listened to this woman speak, and like, cannot for the life of me remember her name, but I'll look her up on the internet. Her name is Simone. I remember that much. Simone Grace Soul. Simone Soul, Seol on the Instas, and she's a coach and a teacher, and you know, I just dug the shit out of her vibes. But she was talking about this whole idea of, you know, letting things just be messy sometimes, letting it be, you know, this open, and like just do it. You know, writing the content. Write a post that you're like, not feeling it today. Everybody can fuck off. But one of the posts one of the things she asked in this class was, what are you about? What is your thing? And I was trying to like quantify, like, you know, all of the things I'm doing into one thing. And I said to Katie, I'm all about selfishness. And she was like, whoa. It's like, I said, but here's what I mean. Here's what I mean. If you don't spend time taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else. So you can't be present in a writer's room if you're doing a co-write. You can't be available to your muse when you're striking a creative balance between your life and, your music, and or wherever that line lies for you. And it's the airplane adage about you got to put your mask on before you can put anybody else's oxygen mask on, because if you don't, then the likelihood of you both dying in the plane due to lack of oxygen is greater. So put your mask on first. And the same is true with life. If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anyone else. And it shouldn't just be because you want to take care of other people that you take care of yourself. But you can't give fully of your gift and enter into your zone of genius. Thank you, Gay Hendricks and The Big Leap, for that piece. If you are not taking care of you.
Yeah.
So that's part of like this whole idea of forgiveness and letting things just be what they're going to be. And just take care of yourself. We all take care of yourselves, please. That's all I want.
Yeah, please just take care of yourself, which is hilarious because then what you would be about is being unselfish.
Yeah. You're able to take care of all the things you need to take care of if you've taken care of yourself.
Yeah. As long as you're a little selfish, you can be selfless.
Ooh.
That's maybe the thing. I wonder what I'm about. Joy. I'm about joy.
Selfishness and joy. This is the podcast.
I know I will absolutely take, like, I'll catch on something that I want to write about, and I will take 30 minutes to put it out there because I hope that other people get joy from it. But I get joy from doing it.
Yes.
Like even if it doesn't nail, if it's not like some viral clip or whatever, I'm still like, that was fun.
Yeah.
I'm all about the fun. I like the fun.
I got to record a very, very, very fancy violin this weekend, and part of it was a job, but the other part of it was I got to set up a couple of microphones in a nice room with an incredible player and an incredible instrument and record it, and I was like, that was fun.
Yeah.
I don't get to do that every day.
Those are the moments. Yeah. Totally.
So, yeah, I mean, I totally feel that joy is really, it's part of it. We all get that joy from being on stage and performing and having a crowd sing all your lyrics back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And like every now and then it comes up to where, during this week in the desert, it was so funny because I played card. We had like a night of drinking and playing cards with a friend, and
excellent.
And some song I wrote came up from God, many, many years ago. And this woman that I know, she was like, "Oh yeah, remember that song?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I do." I was like, "What the hell made you think of it?" She was like, "I was listening to it the other day."
Oh, cool.
I was like, the only reason I know that is because we got together and played cards. But like, she wasn't going to call me or email me. And I think that's also instructive for recording artists to understand. There are some people that listen to your shit that are never going to tell you. It's not an automatic feedback loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, nor should it be. That's not like why you want people to listen to it so that they can tell you, I really listened to it and I like it. You know, there is that aspect of it.
It's nice to hear it, but I think it's part of it is learning to love the process of creating, even when, it's hard, because it is hard sometimes. That's what she said. And, sorry, I'm going to go lie down. But it's difficult at times. See, I changed it there, to be creative. Yeah. But part of the living a healthy and balanced life is finding joy in the process, not just in the result. Actually, that's going to find you more joy is if you're process-oriented versus result-oriented. If you're only looking for, I want to write a song that gets 1 billion streams and has a million views on YouTube, there are specific genres you can work in to make that happen. Yeah. And you may not be playing there. So if that's your only goal, change up what you're doing to mumblecore. Yeah.
It's so funny. This is really instructive. When e-gaming was starting, I have a friend who is that classic stoner guy that, just drinks Kool-Aid and plays video games and eats chicken nuggies. Yeah, and I mean, well into his adulthood. This guy is very much, He could have a kid in high school. Okay, he's that guy. Okay, but he's a massive gamer. He was a massive gamer, and stoner dude, lovely guy, wouldn't hurt anybody. He just loves gaming, and he had an opportunity, and I think it was for Gears of War, but he had an opportunity to join this group that was going to Montreal to play in an esports tournament.
Oh, cool.
And so it was they were going to start a team. So I got involved, and as I do, I was like, you know what, dude? I will fucking sponsor you. We need to get jackets. We got to get stuff. So I'll sponsor your team. You know, I'll have my company sponsor it. We'll do all this. I wanted to know how the music worked in it. Can we do promos? I got all into it, right?
Cool.
And I was like, if you finish like top 5 or higher, I'll sponsor your next tournament. I'll pay for your whole entry fee, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they have to practice. Mm-hmm. So they would get together every night. And instead of getting together and playing and smoking pot and laughing and playing all night, they had to practice like one little kill shot, like kill box. If you play Gears of War, there's like certain sections where you're like, what's going to happen, and so you got to figure out how to figure it out. Yeah. And so they go to Montreal, and one of the guys just totally screwed up what he was supposed to do. And they come back, and my buddy is just downtrodden about the whole thing. And he's like, you know what, dude? I don't want to play. Okay, listen, he kind of sounds like Cartman, But he's like, dude, I don't want to play games anymore for a living because it just takes the joy out of it, man? Yeah. I mean, I just want to smoke some pot and play some games, man.
Dick and balls, hot dogs.
It became a job to him.
Jerb.
Yeah, and he was like, how do you do music when it's a job to you? And I was like, because I like the practice. Yeah. I don't care. Yeah. I mean, I want to do well at the show. I want to do the show well, or whether you release a song or the pitch or whatever it is. Yeah. But I like the actual minutia. I've always liked the minutia. I've always liked going, should that be a G? And messing with it. Or like, and songwriters will understand this if you're listening, like that the idea that when you get to a line and that line that you just wrote is kind of boring. Yeah. And that's kind of a known sort of lyrical rhyme or whatever. And then you switch it up, you change it, and you find that one word, that turn of phrase, the rhythmic in it, and you get it, and you're like, to me, that's like the glory. Like, I don't give a fuck if that song hits the radio. I'm like, oh, I did that. I turned it around. And so, I mean, it can always turn into a job, and, that doesn't mean it's always great.
No, sometimes you gotta work a little bit, but something changed in the last at least 2-3 years with me in live performance. Probably the last 2 years. I've been playing live in venues since the 1900s. Everybody, and and one of the things I noticed was that I was missing a lot of these great shows. I'm like, 40-something years old, and I don't remember that show. Yeah. Why do I not remember the show? Because I know it was good. I know there's a lot of people out there screaming their dicks off and, having a great old time. Why do I not remember it? And so what I started doing is trying to make a conscious effort to be present at the show and realized that I wasn't actually having the show is the easy part. I've already done all the work. Yeah. This is the place to be present and resonant and engaged with the people. And when that changed, I became a much bigger fan of playing live than I had been prior, because you do it so much at a certain point, you just kind of get burned out on it. I mean, I was playing up until about 7 or 8 years ago, I was playing 200-something shows a year. Yeah, yeah. Touring all over the damn place. And so, to find your joy back and find the joy in it again, you have to learn to, be present in it. And you like the process of the songwriting. Should that be a G? Because every time you listen to that song, every time I listen to one of the songs that I wrote, there's some songs that I listen to and I get really emotionally moved by. even though it's like I wrote that, it's like I'm able to talk to myself from the past and the future a little bit. It's like this timeless thing, and recognizing that, like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling like I don't have it together, like having a song that I did that with. I've written a couple of lyrics in the last year or so that I was like, ooh, that one cuts right to the marrow, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like that honesty in songwriting and that presence in performance, those are good. Those make for a much richer creative experience, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, I think comedians, I think writers in general go through that, like where you hear a line. I know, it's like, just for me, there's sometimes where I've heard a line, and I'm like, that's pretty fucking good, and someone will tell me that was mine.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, no, really?
No.
Well, that guy's pretty good.
Yeah.
Or that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I know I've spoken to comedians who do the same thing, where they'll hear a joke and they're like, dude, that was yours. You're like, really? That was a pretty good punchline. Like, there's zero fat on that joke. That's a great joke. And I think that's a lovely part of it. I talked to somebody about this, about live playing once, and he brought up a point that I think's interesting here. He said, when you play live so much, it's like being like a Lothario at sex, like being kind of slutty, and you play that many shows. Yeah, you can have great sex all the time.
Yeah,
and not remember it. Yeah, 2 years later, you don't remember that Tuesday on the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
but like it was great in the moment.
Yeah,
and like that's okay. That's okay if you're stuck in the moment or whatever. And like, so like, if it may be that you don't remember all the shows, but there are some that stand out, like a threesome, I guess. I don't know. I mean, being present, sometimes you don't want to make love all the time, Stu. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. I do. I do. And I'll be honest, I have had the music industry make love to me, and I've had the music industry fuck me. So.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Music as a process. That is absolutely true. And both can be fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's all part of it.
And scene.
Yeah. Should we, I guess, let's touch on the TikTok thing really quick here. I know. I don't know
Senator?
if we should or not. Maybe not. Fuck
Senator.
TikTok. I know. Can you get into the Wi-Fi? Listen, I think we'll go into it a little bit more in depth, because I got a kind of a guide on how to do TikTok a little bit. But let's not do that now. What are your feelings? Are you on TikTok? Do you like TikTok? Do you have like a really quick statement about TikTok and whether it should be banned or not?
Yes, and it should not be banned, and I think TikTok is great. Now, the data questions that are going on the other side, I don't know about that. But as far as, a tool for me as an artist, it's fucking great.
Amen. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think anyone that's ever shopped at Radio Shack or had a Blockbuster card needs to shut the fuck up about data. You already lost it a long time ago.
Yep. Nobody reads those user agreements.
It's a lot easier to go buy your data. First of all, I know this from being in startups. Like, I could go to 3 or 4 companies. If I had the money, I could go buy your profile. I could go buy all the data associated with you everywhere on the internet, from your email to Facebook to Cambridge Analytica to everywhere you've ever used, your MySpace shit, everything. It's much easier to buy a full package of you than to mine your data right now. It's much easier to buy it, and you can buy it from anywhere. So that doesn't mean I don't think there should be curbs on it. I do, but I don't think the government's ever been serious about guarding our data with anyone. Whenever there's a break-in to Target or Binance or wherever the break-ins have been, a hack or whatever, and all your information's gone. Even if a settlement happens, you don't get a goddamn dime. You don't get anything. So there's never been a company that's been put out of business for not being safeguarding your data correctly. And until that happens, it's going to continue to happen. Because when you have profit in a company and you're like, okay, well, that's just risk management. We might have to pay the FTC $200 million over 10 years, whatever. We already made $1 billion, so it doesn't matter. And so, that's my
It's the
stance
cost of
on
doing
that
business
side.
right then at that point.
Yeah, it's just part of it. It's just part of your risk management profile, and you got it in the budget.
And anybody who signs up for Spotify, Apple Music, or any streaming site has to click I agree to the terms and services on this platform to do it. And nobody's fucking reading it.
No.
Nobody's going through and saying, because it basically says in there, we're going to collect your data to feed you better recommendations for your thing. But we're also going to use that data to sell you more dildos and donuts.
Yeah.
Which is my new term. And I'm going to make shirts that say dildos and donuts on it.
And, okay, look, I've been involved in app development and startups and things around music and rights. And so part of it is necessary. If you want to share a Spotify song on your site, you kind of have to give up some of your
privacy.
It's just like the Facebook graph, the social graph. And so like if you're logged into Facebook and you go to another site or whatever, there's a little pixel that says you can share to Facebook, and all this stuff changes, but there is a reason for that, to why someone isn't selling you women's clothing. Yeah. It is kind of a good thing that people know who you are, that you're a male, that you're this age, that you live in America. There are some things about it that otherwise the internet would be completely wild. You would be sold women's shoes. You would be sold like a bunch of things that,
I have been.
Well,
because I
don't
bought
know.
women's shoes before.
If you got 12 wide, I'm in. I do like those Manolos. Yeah.
I will also say this: there's no good men's clothing out there. So oftentimes I will buy a woman's shirt or pants because they're way cooler than men's clothes.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
So here's my little take on TikTok, and we'll dig. Like I said, we'll dig into this maybe another time. First of all, I don't think it's going to be banned. I think
so
this
either.
they went way too far with that bill. The whole problem with, a lot of this is xenophobia against China. Yeah, and I hate to tell you, but I got a MacBook over here, I got an iPhone over here. Spotify has 9% ownership by Tencent. That's one of the biggest streaming companies in China. And so, they by partially own Universal Music Group. So all these people, they're like, anything having to do with Chinese government ownership. I'm like, oh, get ready. You're going to lose half your shit. Yeah. Because there's a lot. And that's the way China works. It's like half communist, half capitalist. It's, it works kind of in a bunch of ways. However, my big takeaway on this is that if TikTok were to go away, it would eviscerate the modern music business, especially for independents. The amount of hits that have come off TikTok, the amount of independents that have gotten, direct money from streaming, from blowing up, from getting bigger gigs and all of that. It is a major thing. And I have people in the music industry who are friends, people that work at majors, who have told me, oh, that's what they yelled about with MySpace. Oh, that's what they yelled about with Napster. There'll be another one that replaces it. And I am here to tell you, again, as someone who's worked a little bit in the startup world, ain't nobody investing in another startup app like that. Yeah. It's not AI. It's not crypto. That's where the Silicon Valley money is going. And there's very little Silicon Valley money going around because of SVB Bank going down. And so this is a different world in that, yes, it used to be the case an app would go down and another one would take its place. Friendster gives way to Twitter, gives way, whatever. Yeah. That was the case. We're living in a completely different world for apps being developed now. Yeah. And that is an important thing to understand. If TikTok goes away, there isn't another one that's just going to come and get it right away. It's an acquisition world. That's what happened to Vine, where Twitter buys Vine and then kills it. And so TikTok, I think, is really important for independent musicians, and we'll get into it another time. But the biggest thing I would say to you is there is no other platform, and let me be very clear, no other platform where you could put out a piece of music, 30 seconds, whatever, right? And reach 1 million people tonight. Yeah. None. Not YouTube, not Twitter, not Facebook, not Instagram. There is no other platform, not SoundCloud, not Spotify. All of those are kind of run by the ecosystem of the algorithm, and without paying for some advertising or boosting, but you could be literally somebody with 100 followers, 200 followers, little engagement, and you could literally blow up and hit 1 million people that heard your song. Mm-hmm. You should not be for getting rid of that.
I agree.
And that's my point. So there you go. So that's TikTok. All right, let's get on to favorite sync of the week. Woo. And wrap this up. I wanted to drop into this a little bit, and I'm going to put this little sheet on the next to the podcast where you review and rate and subscribe and leave us dirty messages and stuff. And this would be a free download. But I was asked this question a few weeks ago, and I thought, well, this might be interesting for the podcast. It was basically like, what kind of music should I do for sync? It's a tough question because sync is varied. Right? It's all over the place. It depends on who you're pitching and what you're pitching for. But there are some general guidelines, really more of a guideline than a rule. And so there are some guidelines. And there's a big movement. Sync does this where it's very much a pendulum swing. For a while, sync was very much about having only artists that were doing sync. Like they wanted artist-driven songs that were doing sync. And then they wanted basically sync artists that would be able to write completely to a brief and then turn that in. It's not really a song you release. It's not really a artist name. We've swung back around. I'm seeing this a lot again of they really want artist-driven syncs, meaning it's kind of songs you would put out anyway and it just matches naturally.
Yeah.
So, but there are thousands of these kind of opportunities. So it's hard to tell what the industry is. There's not really one answer to this. But so all music, any music can be synced with it just comes down to the perfect song, the perfect price, and the perfect placement. And that's it. If it's not all those three, a lot of times it won't work. Yeah. So, but there are basically 5 major types of syncs, and one is beds. And this is underlying instrumental cues. They can be poppy. For a long time, it was, these ukulele happy songs with claps. And if you know about that, if you were in that, this is about 5 years ago, where everything they wanted was just blinka, blinka, blinka. Thank you, Ryan Tedder, for the hand claps. Yeah. Probably owe you money for that. The other thing for beds is anthemic music. So big cinematic swells. You can think gaming walkthroughs, things that seem epic. And then there's also sort of background music that is just sort of just in the background, a nice, sometimes that's lo-fi, sometimes that's just a bed of music behind there. So that's bed music. The number 2 big thing is, and these aren't in any given order, because it depends on the project, but a happy sync. These are things that come up all the time in briefs. Things about the time of our life, best friends, the world is mine, life is so good, party scenes, get on up, let's do that kind of song. The third kind is a moody sync. These are sad songs, broken, the world is ending. This can also be like Against the Man. This could be a rebellious kind of song about taking the system down. Those are always in demand for certain sort of placements. And then there are signature songs. And this is basically like major label releases that come out, and they may not even pair with a scene exactly. Like the latest single that comes out from, say, Doja Cat is used in a driving scene. Well, it may not be setting the time or the place or the theme of the music actually matches the emotion, but it's just like, this is a fun song. We know it's a hot new single. We're going to place that in. It's a signature song.
In the Fast and Furious.
Yeah. It could be Led Zeppelin, going to California for the airplane scene in Entourage. This is something that happens 40 years past Led Zeppelin. They probably don't even listen to Led Zeppelin, but it's a great form of a signature song. It was kind of a get it, the song. Sometimes this can be like a director or a soup. They just have a favorite. They're going to put that song in somehow. I want to get it in there. That doesn't mean
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work for the scene. It will work. But like Bill Lawrence and Krista Miller did this a little bit on Shrinking.
God, yeah.
Where they found someone and they found a song and they're like, we're just going to use it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it could also be a hip song being used for an iPhone commercial. You see this a lot in tech commercials, Android, iPhones, that sort of thing. Just sort of a cool, hip, newer sounding song. Doesn't mean that the theme of the song matches what the product is. So that is like a signature song. And for indies, this is going to be up a long hill for you to climb. Speaking of running up that hill.
Running up that hill.
Which brings
got there
us
right before
to
me.
perfect song placement, which is exact song, exact time and place that the scene is setting or the commercial is setting. It aligns perfectly lyrically, musically, thematically, time-wise. It's oriented in a time and a place and a period. Works perfectly with the visual. And in some cases, these perfect songs can also be signature songs. So Running Up That Hill is a great example. And you can see that with like classic big band songs being used in a 1940s setting. Or you can see it in 1960s hippie songs being used to set the tone for like a hippie scene. And the same thing with like an 80s synth song. I just saw one that was using Pet Shop Boys for I've got the brains, you've got the brawn, let's make lots of money in like an 80s yuppie cocaine-driven scene, and it was happening in the 80s. That's a perfect placement, style.
Yeah.
And so those are the main things. Of course, other things can be set for like sports theme songs or whatever, but those usually fall into one of these 5 categories. There is a sixth category that is very strange, and this brings me to my sink of the week. So the weird category is called an anachronistic placement.
Ooh.
It's a big word. Thank you. You can Venmo me your quarter. Venmo.
That was going to be a nickel.
Your money, your move. Anyway, an anachronistic placement. This is where the song that's used in the scene, and a lot of times this is a song that has lyrics, and so or it's a known placement, and it completely is against what's in the scene in the time and place. A really good example of this is if you've ever seen Peaky Blinders.
Yep.
Takes place in 1918, 1919, somewhere around there. And there's a whole bunch of Jack White and White Stripes as music.
Yeah.
Now, it can work thematically, but like at first, when you first hear it, you hear Jack White and there's people walking around with top hats on and time watches and stuff, and old horse-driven carts and stuff. That is an anachronistic placement. When it works well. It kind of throws you off a little bit because it's a little bit out of the norm of a music supervisor. But God, if you can do this as a music supervisor and pull it off, ooh, it's brilliant. It works really well.
Yeah.
So this brings you to mine. My sink of the week is from a show called Rogue Heroes, which is, I think it was on Stars, but now it's on MGM Plus because they're making the transfer over. It started on BBC. It's a limited 6 episode series, and it's about the origin story of the SAS in Britain, how it got to be, how it started, and this happens in the Second World War, fighting against the Nazis and Germans. The English are trying to hold off them in North Africa. And this little rogue group of heroes wants to create their own little regiment, and they do, and that becomes the SAS, which is still in action today. But so I'm watching this thing. It's Northern Africa. It's 1938 or 40, somewhere around there, right? Second World War, and here comes what I know is Angus Young's guitar, and they're driving jeeps through the desert. And the song is If You Want Blood, You Got It from AC/DC.
Nice.
And I'm like,
nice.
An anachronistic song placement.
Yeah.
Again, this was me relaxing, watching a fucking show. And I'm like, I gotta go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Well, as I continue to watch the show, so that is it. That's If You Want Blood, AC/DC. Amelia Hartley is the soup on it. It's set in World War II in Africa and using AC/DC. And then as it goes through, it's using Black Sabbath. It's using Killing Joke. It's using Motorhead.
That's an odd one. That's really
I mean,
cool.
they go way deep. It's not just
nice
like rock songs that you know. There's some punk in a boxing scene. There's you hear Lemmy scream. Now it all works because a lot of it's hardcore, like a lot of it's hard metal or metal from the time, and so it just kind of shows the grit of what it would be like to be fighting in the World War. But I thought it was an amazing use of anachronistic placement, and so there's a little term that you learned today, and there's my big
something.
thing. Well, I don't know if you did, but maybe somebody did. But yeah, If You Want Blood, AC/DC, and this is Bon Scott AC/DC, by the way. So you'd go back for that. Also, Rogue Heroes. Pretty cool show, kind of weird. It's only 6. It's a limited series. They may be doing another one, but it's a BBC thing, and I'm in.
Yeah, I like the BBC shows. I was trying to figure. We've talked about this. Like, there's a way that BBC shows look.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can't quite figure out how they do it. You know what I mean?
It's an editing trick and also a camera trick, but yeah.
Yeah. It looks a certain way, and I can always tell, like, oh, this is probably shot, in what's the studio they use for Star Wars? Somewhere in London. You can see it. By the way, anytime I had a bunch of hard rock bands that we had any sync opportunities, we were always told it would be during the drug raid scene, or there'd be, like busting some white supremacists and they'd be blasting some heavy metal and it would be our song. And I was like, God damn it, can we have something a little bit less aggressive? They're like, listen to your music, man. I'm like, oh, fine. Anyway, my sync of the week, well, I've got 2, but I'll start with this one. I am such a huge fan of Ted Lasso. I can't even stand it. But last week's episode with the Jesus Christ Superstar placement made me... when I caught what it was, I sat up and I went, oh my God, this scene is amazing. Like, the scene was amazing, and, there's a whole lot of shit going on. But when that started playing and the slow motion camera work's happening and the character's up on the stands with his arms in the air and you just da da da, I was like so happy I couldn't even stand it. It
was absolutely amazing.
It was amazing, and it was so unexpected. That was going to be the choice there. I just loved it.
If you get a chance, the guy that edited that scene, his name is AJ Cataline or Catalini, and he is he's an ace. He's an editor. They were given cards by Jason Sudeikis on that montage. So that he knew what the montage was going to be for that scene for Zaba. Like how they're, the team, if you will see it by this point, but the team starts winning and everything starts changing and Jesus Christ Superstar comes on. He said that they auditioned like 4 or 5 songs, but that was one that he wanted. And he was like, cool. I just thought this would be perfect because he's the second coming and Jesus Christ Superstar. And he had always loved the album and it's Andrew Lloyd Webber, right? Yeah, and he'd always loved Andrew Lloyd Webber, and he knew that Andrew Lloyd Webber's son was sick, and who has now passed, apparently. And so, if you get a chance, you can look him up, AJ Cataline, Catoline, on Twitter, and he does a whole thread of how that scene was put together. You get to see the cards on the table, like the little sticky notes on the table, but it's interesting, I think, for people that want to get into sync to understand it's not just somebody in an office listening to music. A lot of times there is somebody who is just passionate and they are in the editing room and it just comes down to what works. And you may there could have been other songs. He said he auditioned many songs for it. So understand, like when you get into, a queue or something and you get into On Hold, it may not work in the edit. It may just not work. But really, he's the one that championed that song. The editor is the one who got that song through. And I think it just happened last week. So if you get a chance to go through that thread on Twitter, it's pretty interesting to see exactly how it came about.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you see that? I saw an interview with somebody that was working with Scorsese on Casino. And they were talking about how there was a certain scene when De Niro's like, he's eyeballing somebody he's going to kill. And they were kind of mapping it out, maybe storyboarding it out. And Scorsese just goes, cream. And he goes, what the fuck are you talking about? And he knew he wanted, I think it was Sunshine of Your Love that was in that scene.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And he just knew that, like, as the director, he could see it in his mind, in his mind's eye.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack was that song to this scene.
Yeah.
And or it was White Room or something like that. But I love that, creative, like Tarantino does that, James Gunn's clearly doing that.
Yeah.
There's all these directors that I think Robert Rodriguez does a lot of this too, where they have a very specific vision and a very specific soundtrack that goes underneath. And as a songwriter, very often I go the other way. I hear my music and I can visualize, I can kind of see what I want the video or the other piece of it to look like.
Yeah.
So I just love that that's part of it.
But that's also a reason for understanding that sometimes your music has to get into the world to be available for people to visualize something. So, those songs don't stick in a director's head or an editor's head or whatever if they're not available or if they're not if you're not pushing it. So it is a counterbalance between having something unreleased, which is very beneficial to you, sometimes pitching to have something unreleased if it's one of those songs that is going to blow up a little bit. But to understand that just sometimes songs come back. They come back eventually because someone heard them and it meant something to them. And later on in their life, now they're the editor or the music supervisor or the director or whatever. And they're like, I want to use that song. You see it happen with indies too. It's not just majors. And that's why I wanted to explain in this is that there is the beauty about sync to me is that it's almost nothing but creative.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there is a money threshold, there is a budget, but like if the song works perfectly for the scene, they'll do anything to make sure it's in there. And that could be your song, and like there's this, again, with Bill Lawrence for Shrinking, there's this artist, Charlotte, I can't remember her last name, but you could probably find it on their Twitter. But this artist, Charlotte, that he fell in love with, that's just like, this song has to be on something. And he had heard it with Krista Miller, and they ended up placing it. And she's not signed. It's not a huge song. It's just something that meant a lot to them. So,
yeah. I've enjoyed, they've been posting on her Instagram, because she's been, Krista Miller's been, kind of leading a bunch of the sync stuff on Shrinking for sure. And she talks about kind of why they chose certain songs and how they found it and those two are actively listening to a lot of new music all the time because they're music fans. And so when they're creating these scenes, they're whatever they've come across may well end up in the scene.
Yeah, and I want to clean that up a little bit. Her name is Charlotte Lawrence.
Gotcha.
And the song is Body Bag. And
that's right.
And it wasn't coming out until March 31st. But she got a placement on it, and she got it, and it worked.
Are you saying that unreleased music has got a premium attached to it these days, Mr. St. James?
Because the other thing is that she had an article written up in the ME, and again, any one of these things when you're releasing music doesn't matter altogether on its own. It's everything at once. The song is in a show, and NME put out a little write up of it, and your link to has the new pre-save, and all of these things kind of work to where when it all gets pushed in at once, and then the producer of the show and the writer of the show tweets about it. And suddenly you've 45,000 followers and the song is like burning up. I wanted to see what her, what it did on YouTube, because it did very well. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it until I saw him tweet about it. And, and I listened to it. It was really good. It's a sad fucking song. So like not a major release, right? This is not a huge major release. It was released 4 days ago, and it's got 35,000 views. Okay.
Nice.
So, but that's like for this kind of artist, that's pretty awesome. And she just put out an EP. It's not, she's not some major label act or anything like that. It's just a really damn good song.
It just goes to show that if you love the process and continue to hone the process, I equate it to a video game, the writing, recording, and releasing of songs. Because every time you do it, you're going to level up, you're going to get better at it. And so eat that mushroom, and all of a sudden you can smell colors.
Yeah, man.
But the more that you do it, and the more that you make yourself aware of what is going on in the industry you have chosen, or you have been chosen by, however you'd like to put it, the better you will get at it, and the better you get at it, the more opportunities like that present themselves to you.
Yeah, and I think she does have a publishing deal with Warner, but
no, that helps
a little bit. So maybe that's just now. I know the license shows that, but she's not some huge art. Like, this isn't some big legacy act, and so this
isn't Miley Cyrus
can absolutely
or
happen.
Taylor Swift. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap this sucker up. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember to rate and subscribe us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Leave a hilarious comment. Please use the word
6 stars if you can.
cunt
6
if you can, stars. As much as you can.
Oh my God, my friend sent me the Wheeler Walker Jr. song. She's a country music fan. Have you heard this song?
Love that song.
It's like, I'm covering this immediately. Anyway, carry on.
We should do a cover of it. That should be covered a lot, actually.
Yeah.
No, that's it. Just you can find us anywhere. You find your fun things online at 2 Shots Music Pod on all of your little social stuff. 2 Shots Music Pod. And thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Have fun.
You're all so cool. Thanks for being here. I love you.
Okay, bye.